Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
At Smith Tax and Business Service, we offer many services. Along with personal income tax prep, we also offer tax preparation for corporations and partnerships. If you're a small business and looking for some extra help, give us a shout and we'll get you fixed up. Call Mary Beth Smith, Marion Matthews, Brooklyn Bates, or Michelle Staggs to find out how we can help you. Located at 208 Pulaski Street, phone 931-244-6633.
Are you tired of missing out on family life just to be treated like another truck number? Since 1986, Southeast Carriers has been a family-operated business based in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee. Being family-owned ourselves, we understand the importance of family, which is why we value it above all else. With our large number of dedicated lanes and our friendly staff, we are able to evenly divide your home time with the amount of time you spend on the road. We offer multiple benefits with large company pay now starting at $20 per hour, all while keeping a small company environment. For more information, visit our website, southeastcarriers.com, or check us out on Instagram and Facebook.
Southern Craft Manufacturing is dedicated to creating the finest quality and greatest value products in the death care industry. Southern Craft has perfected blending old world craftsmanship with modern manufacturing technologies to create a full line of steel, wood, and corrugated caskets. Family owned and operated for over 30 years, Southern Craft is now looking to hire local and regional truck drivers, welders, and production workers, each with great starting pay and a benefits package. For more information, visit southerncraftmfg.com. Let me tell you about a place that has it all. For your home, bedroom, kitchen, lawn, and more. It's a home-owned and home-operated business that's been around for over 70 years, so you know they're doing something right. At Swap and Shop Center in Lawrenceburg, you'll find top name brands for every room of your house, and top brands for the outside too. Looking for appliances, televisions, couches, safes, bedding, mowers, and well, the list goes on. So make the drive today to 824 North Military Avenue in Lawrenceburg and be treated right.
If you're looking for a company that can do it all when it comes to building, look no further than Tennessee Properties. From new home builds to remodels and commercial projects, our contractors work hard to give your space a new life from planning to finishing touches. Whether it's new interiors or dirt work, they see your big picture without forgetting the small details. In the market for a new home, they partnered with Freeman Development to bring new homes to the Oak Hill subdivision of Lawrenceburg. That's Tennessee Properties, licensed and insured. Call today or visit tennessee.com.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
And welcome into this Friday edition of the Mark My Words College Sports Show here on the X Sports Network. I'm your host, Michael Marks, and we're here to keep you up to date on everything going on in the world of college football, in the world of college basketball, all college sports. And we're kind of in that junction area of the season where we have college basketball and college football going on at the same time, so we're going to have a little bit of overlap, and we've got a collection of topics to talk about. First one's definitely a bit of a heavy one, and then we got some more fun stuff here at the end, so we'll jump right into it. Sherrone Moore. The University of Michigan has fired head coach Sherrone Moore for cause Wednesday afternoon after it was discovered that he had an ongoing inappropriate relationship with a football staffer. Within the next couple of hours, reports had surfaced that Moore had been arrested and was in custody in Saline, Michigan, a suburb right outside of Ann Arbor. A couple of hours later, an update showed that Moore was in custody for an alleged assault charge. Really just an all-around messy situation in Ann Arbor. It was also reported by NBC Sports yesterday afternoon by Nicole Arbach that Michigan and Michigan's athletic department and Ward Manuel, their athletic director, were notified prior to meeting with Moore that he was dealing with mental health issues and still chose to fire him with no HR or security present. It's just an all-around bad look for the University of Michigan. We know all the stuff that went on with Jim Harbaugh and the sign stealing with Connor Stallions. Moore was involved in that. He was had to serve a couple game suspension this year. Because of that, Jim Harbaugh is not going to be able to coach in college football for the next 10 years. Many guys on that staff won't be allowed to coach college ball for several years. So it's probably time for Michigan to clean house, realistically. it's just not a good culture up there with the coaches, which is the craziest thing. Those are supposed to be the adults in the room, and now you have your last head coach cheated, so he went back to the NFL, where hopefully, for his sake at least, hope he can keep a job there, be successful there, where he doesn't have to come back to college, because I don't know if anybody would ever hire him again. Then you go to Sherrone Moore, who was involved in all of the sign stealing, the Burgergate, things like that. Well, he's the head coach at Michigan. Does an all right job. They went 8-5 last year, go 9-3 through the regular season this year. So 17-8 record as a head coach isn't terrible. But there were some rumblings that started all the way back in the summer of some reports of Sherrone Moore with some sort of ongoing inappropriate relationship with a staffer, and then it gets worse than that. There was the real thing that got the wheel started on this was a DoorDash driver who delivered a Plan B to the Michigan football facility, to Sherrone Moore's office. I don't know if it's ignorance or just a lack of care, but I mean, that's just stupid. This is a married man with 3 kids, and you're doing that? And now people are pulling up, video clips of him on the sideline in other games, standing with that assistant. There were some that assistant is supposedly the one that was responsible for kind of catering to Sherrone Moore's family during games. Her salary gets doubled going into this past season. It's just a bad look. And we've seen other members of their coaching staff, like Denard Robinson, get in trouble with the DUI. He's been let go of the staff. He won't be returning. You see the stuff with Ward Manuel, their athletic director. One, it took months for this to eventually be brought to light. And now we're looking at, you go back a couple of weeks, what if Michigan had beaten Ohio State, had won the Big Ten championship, and was now in the college football playoff? What are we doing then? Because this story does not come out if that happens. Or at least it doesn't come out until after they lose in the playoffs. And if they won, does this ever see the light of day? Or how messy does it get from there? It was something that some people around here discussed off camera, that maybe they just need to do a complete clean out of their athletic staff. It's just bad. The athletic director shows that he didn't care until it was past National Signing Day. I mean, this was stuff had been brought up for months and months and months, and now it just comes to light. There were some rumors that this has been at least known for months, and has been probably done with the investigation for a couple of weeks. But you see what happened with Penn State. They fired James Franklin. I don't know if it's gotten any better, but the last I checked, they had 2 recruits signed, 3. They might not have a football team next year. It seems. I mean, at least in this class, they're going to have to hit the portal pretty hard. And Matt Campbell's a great coach, so I think he'll be able to do that. But now you're seeing, I know a 4-star tight end has requested his letter of intent. They've had an interior offensive lineman do the same. And now for the whole coaching, or at least the entire player base, they have a 30-day window in which they can transfer that will run all the way up until when the actual transfer portal window opens on January 2nd and runs for 2 more weeks. So, these kids essentially have, give or take, a month to get everything figured out, which is not enough time realistically, but that's neither here nor there. Biff Poggi has been named the Wolverines interim head coach for the second time this season. He was the guy that served earlier in the season when Moore was serving a different suspension. So he'll coach the Wolverines against Texas in the Citrus Bowl. That game is on New Year's Eve. So now that this has come up, that coaching carousel that had gotten relatively dormant in the terms of big names and big jobs, boy, it just got revved back up, because Michigan is arguably a top 5 brand. I would bona fide top 10 brand, maybe even higher than the top 5. It could be top 3 or top 2. I mean, you see that Michigan M. You see that helmet, the Wolverine helmet. I mean, everybody knows Michigan. So where do they go? Like I said, they can't go with anybody really that has Michigan connection, so to speak, because Harbaugh and everybody on his staffs from the past couple of years has a no-show clause for the next, some of them 2 years, some of them 5 years, some of them 10 years. So, and these were penalties that were dealt in the summer. So they can't go with anybody that really has Michigan connections as far back as 3 or 4 years ago, or really in the last decade almost. So, obviously, the first name that came up was Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. I don't know why the name keeps popping up. I don't see him having any reason to leave Alabama. He's got them in the playoff. He's got a good team. He's been a solid recruiter. And really, this year, it was injuries that kind of hurt Alabama more than anything. And we'll see how and listen, they're still in the playoff. They have a game against Oklahoma on the 19th. And if you win that, you're in the college football playoff quarterfinals. And get a New Year's Six bowl. So, again, DeBoer is the name that's on everybody's list. And I get it. It's Michigan. It's a big name. You want the biggest name you can get, and DeBoer's probably the only one left. I just don't see any reason for him to want to leave Alabama. You know, you see people leave their job for a different job when it's an upgrade, or at least is seen as a slight upgrade, even if you want to call it a horizontal move. It's a downgrade from Alabama to Michigan. Look at where the two teams went following that 2023 season. Alabama lost Nick Saban, but they went 9-4 last year. They've gone 10-3 up to this point this year. I mean, 19-7 isn't terrible. It's not great, obviously, but Nick Saban in his first 2 years at Alabama went 11-2, 7-6, so 18-8. So, I mean, math tells you that right now, Kalen DeBoer's one game better. Now, doesn't have Alabama necessarily in the national championship fight, I would say, this year, but years to come, he's going to have him there. I mean, you look at where he was right before he came to Alabama. He had Washington in the national championship game. The year before that, they were pretty good as well. And speaking of Washington, the guy that followed Kalen DeBoer up, I think Jedd Fisch should be in that as well. He's got some ties to Michigan. If you wanted to look at that, you know, he's 49. He's been a head coach a couple of times at Arizona from 2021 to 23. Has been at Washington the last 2 seasons. Has a 31-33 overall record. But you look, he was the quarterbacks coach and the passing game coordinator for Michigan in 2015 and 2016. Now, Michigan wasn't necessarily great in those years. Well, I mean, it was the first couple of years of Harbaugh. He was still trying to get everything kind of settled in. But, I mean, they went 10-3 in 2015 and 10-3 in 2016. Those only losses coming to Ohio State, Florida State, Iowa in 2016. That Iowa game probably kept them out of the playoffs that year. And then in 2015, losses to Utah in that week 1 game. That was a great game. I love that little home and home they had with Utah. Michigan State and Ohio State. And that was a number 7 Michigan State and a number 8 Ohio State. So those were good teams. I think Fisch could be a great name. I mean, look at what he's kept going at Washington. Look what he built at Arizona. I mean, Arizona was in a really bad spot pre-COVID. And now they're in I'd say a fairly good spot right now. I mean, they're not in the playoff or anything, but just to be where they are is quite remarkable. I mean, Kevin Sumlin almost left Arizona for dead, almost. It was, you know, they went 0-5 in someone's last year, and that COVID year, but before that, 4-8. Before that, 5-7. I mean, they weren't winning many games at all. And then, you know, Jedd Fisch comes in 2021. Has to turn everything around. Goes 1-11. It was terrible. I mean, their one win that year. If I can pull up a schedule, their one win that year came against Cal. And I mean, Cal's not the greatest either. But in 2022, 5-7. 2023, they go 10-3 and win the Alamo Bowl against Oklahoma. in a great matchup between young quarterbacks in that game. It was Jackson Arnold and Noah Fafita. And man, was that a battle. Let me see if I can pull up stats from that game, because that was a great one. 38-24, again, the Arizona win. You Yeah, Noah Fafita, 24 of 38, 354 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. And then Jackson Arnold, 26 of 45, 361 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks. You could kind of see that maybe he was going to start trending down that next year. But that was a great game, fun game. But what I'm getting at here, Fish has shown that he can build programs. Then you look at he takes over Washington for the 2024 season last year. They go 6-6. Yeah, it's not great, but you look at everyone they lost from that national championship team. I mean, it's a miracle they won 6 games. You lose Michael Penix. You lose all of your receivers. I mean, Roma Dunze, Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk, all 3 of those guys gone. You lost your Joe Moore, most of your Joe Moore winning offensive line, and you lost a bunch of defensive coaches. You lost a bunch of offensive coaches. I mean, you lost everybody. Fish comes in, settles everything down, so to speak, and now here they are, Washington right now. I'll be talking about Washington in a little bit because their bowl game is one of the first ones actually. So we will have to talk about them. Let me look at the Huskies. I think were they 8-4 this year? Yes. I mean, you look really. The only game that they really shouldn't have lost this year was at Wisconsin. Maybe at Michigan, but Michigan didn't have a number by their name right then, but they were still a pretty good team. And then what does that mean for Michigan? Because one of the things right now being talked about on 3 is Bryce Underwood. His contract with Michigan does not include a buyout. And Underwood's camp is paying very close attention to who his next head coach is going to be. Because remember, he took that huge pay boost to pretty much jump ship from LSU to Michigan. Had all the hype going into the year. I'm not going to say he lived up to expectations because I think they were set way too high. But I think he did a great job for a freshman in an offense that isn't tailored to a guy to put up huge numbers. I mean, we've seen that from Michigan the past 10 years. They don't have an offense that can put up big numbers. I mean, you can say Blake Corum was in the Heisman race, or Donovan Edwards was. I don't see it. Kenny Dillingham is another name that's been thrown around. He has no connections to the program, I would believe. But Dillingham is a young head coach that turned he's 35. He's even younger than Fish, and he's a guy that turned Arizona State completely around when he took over in 2023. I mean, Herm Edwards had almost completely run them into the ground. And look at where they are. Obviously, 2025 wasn't what you hoped. But I don't think 8-4 is anything to shrug your head about, especially when you have the injuries that you do. Jordan Tyson didn't play every game. You didn't have your quarterback, Sam Levitt, for every game. And you lose a locker room guy, a momentum guy, and a great player on the field from last year in Cam Scatteroo. But he took over in 2023. They went 3-9, was bad. But then the next year they made the playoff, and this year wasn't great. But they could be back at the snap of a finger just because I think Dillingham's a great recruiter and he's a great coach. Another name to throw around, just because he has Big Ten ties, is the only reason I've thrown this name in there. I think Jason Eck deserves a bit of love. He's 48, so again, on the coaching scheme of things, relatively young. He's the head coach of New Mexico. He 1 year at New Mexico. They went 9-3 this year. Were really, really good. But he's been all over the place with really good programs the last decade. I mean, he spent 2015 with Montana State as the run game coordinator, O-line coach. Was the O-line coach at South Dakota State. Then was the offensive coordinator at South Dakota State. Took over at Idaho in 2022. And then has been at New Mexico since 2025. Listen, his record as a head coach right now, 35-16. I mean, there's nothing you can shake your head about, and I think this dude will be in the Big Ten at some point. With some team, maybe a Minnesota, maybe a Wisconsin, go back to his alma mater and be winning 8 to 9 games a year because his defense is incredible, and it's smash mouth football. I mean, that is what the Big Ten is. Does Michigan want that? Maybe not, especially with a guy that's unproven at that level. But I've seen names like Jesse Minter get thrown around. Don't think that's an option. His no-show clause ends December 15th, but again, I don't think they would be hiring him. And I'm not exactly how sure we'll see this job fill up. Is it something that maybe will happen in the next hour or two? Or is it something that will happen in the next, is this something that could happen in the next week? Is it going to, maybe wait till the playoff? And to keep talking about this, former Michigan, so this is from 8 minutes ago, former Michigan coach Sherrone Moore has been charged with home invasion in the third degree, stalking, and breaking and entering. So this comes from the reports on Thursday morning that said that after Moore, I don't know the exact full timeline, but at some point Wednesday afternoon, Moore had gone to that staffer's home and broken in, obviously with the breaking and entering, and had threatened to, hurt him and her, possibly. So, not a great situation, not a laughing matter whatsoever. So I'm hoping that Sherrone Moore can get everything figured out. Michigan can get everything figured out and get back on with sports, because when sports turns to serious stuff like this, it's not as fun. I mean, I don't think there's anybody, except maybe some really dark and twisted, some other Big Ten fans that are kind of laughing at Michigan about this. It's a bad spot. Their coach is they don't have a coach. The guy that was their coach is obviously in some serious trouble and some with some maybe some possible mental health issues. Just not a great look at Michigan. Hopefully they get everything figured out and again can kind of get back on their way with sports, because look, right now they have one of the best college basketball teams in the country. That isn't something that should be overshadowed by something else going on in the athletic department like this. It is looking like USC will not be playing their home games in the LA Coliseum for the 2028 season due to the Olympic Games. Something with the stadium and it being used for a track. They don't believe they're going to have the football field ready to start the 2028 season. So it looks like the USC, the Trojans, will have to play their home games at SoFi Stadium, which realistically probably a huge upgrade from the Coliseum. I haven't been to either, but I mean, you can just, at least from the vantage point that a fan sitting at home would see, huge upgrade. Funny enough, this could mean that that there are 4 Los Angeles-based football teams playing under one roof in 2028. If UCLA goes forward with trying to leave the Rose Bowl after this next season, that would mean you would have the Rams. You would have, obviously, USC, UCLA, the Rams, and the Chargers all playing at SoFi. Props to whoever has to schedule and keep the field ready for stuff like that. I mean, because that building's not going to have a weekend off. It never does, obviously, it being one of the bigger arenas or stadiums in LA. But man, football season, that place is going to be a buzzing place. So last week, Tennessee fired defensive coordinator Tim Banks after 5 seasons with the team. Both Banks and Tennessee have moved on to bigger and better things, hopefully. Banks has been hired to be the safety coach at Auburn, joining his former co-worker, so to speak, in Alex Golish's staff on the Plains in Auburn. And Tennessee has hired Jim Knowles to be their next defensive coordinator. Knowles was the last defensive coordinator at Penn State this year, but it's spent the last couple of years with Ohio State and other teams like Oklahoma State and Duke. Knowles was the defensive coordinator on the 2024 Ohio State team that won the national championship, so a huge upgrade from the Vols, at least in the defensive coordinator room. Now, obviously, it depends on where you read it from. There are some Tennessee fans that are really excited about Jim Knowles. There are some Tennessee fans that are really upset about Jim Knowles. I just look at that everywhere this dude has gone, their defenses have gotten better, and better to a point that Tennessee would need to be at if they wanted to win seriously. You need a top 25 defense, realistically, in college football to compete. Tennessee was 92nd in total defense this year. I don't think it's going to take a massive jump. They're not going to be like 30 next year. They could, but I don't see that happening. But, maybe in 2 or 3 years, they're sitting somewhere around, 28 and 22, 24, something like that. If their offense can be what it was this year and was in 2021 and 2022, we can see more of that, the variety, the up and down the field, maybe a little bit better run game. That team could win a national championship. Till then, they're going to continue being 8-4, 9-3, maybe sneak into the playoffs every once in a while. But that's a hire that proves that this team knows that they can get better and are trying to do everything they can to get better. Now, Noles' defense this past year was not great at Penn State. One reason that I would attribute to that is he didn't get to bring his guys with him to Penn State. They just hired Jim Knowles and gave him a crap load of money for it too. You know, Josh Heupel has let Knowles know that he's going to be able to bring in some of his guys and get a defensive staff ready. Because if you watch Tennessee's defense, realistically every year but the 2024 season, and even there at the end, it was bad. That defense needed an overhaul completely from top to bottom. And I don't think it's the players. I think at some point it's got to be the coaches, because these coaches have had 5 years now to get something ready, and they haven't, other than 1 year. And doing your job right 20% of the time isn't going to get it done in any sport, even baseball nowadays. So I think it's a great hire. I think Tennessee could compete in the next couple of years. But, you've got to play the games on your schedule, and we have some schedules now. The SEC released their 2026 football schedules last night. As we will look at those, I will go over I'd say the 4 teams that the people around here care about the most. We will start first with Alabama. Week 1, home against East Carolina. Week 2 already start. So there are no SEC games in Week 1, but they do start pretty soon in Week 2. Alabama at Kentucky. Then they'll have a home game Week 3 against Florida State. Week 4, South Carolina. Week 5 at Mississippi State. Week 6. Now, I will say weeks 6 through 11 for Alabama, it's tough. They go Georgia at home, at Tennessee, Texas A&M, bye week, at LSU, at Vanderbilt. That's a great, Alabama had a great stretch this year. If they win 4 of those 5 games in that stretch, maybe even win all 5 of them, that is a bona fide playoff team. Now, I would say their first 5 games probably won't trip them up at all. South Carolina has surprisingly given Alabama really good fights every time they've played for the last 15 years. And then the last 2 games against Chat and home against Auburn. That's a fun schedule. It's a little too early to start predicting stuff since we haven't even crowned a championship team from this year. We'll go to Auburn. There's some Auburn fans around here. Week 1 in Atlanta against Baylor. That should be a great matchup. Alex Golesh getting his feet wet against a big program to get started. Week 2, Southern Miss. Week 3, home against Florida. Week 4, Vanderbilt. Week 5 at Tennessee, so Alex Golesh will make his trip to Knoxville in Week 5. Bye week at Georgia. LSU at Ole Miss. Arkansas, Mississippi State, Samford, and at Alabama is the schedule for Auburn. I think that's somewhat favorable. First-year head coach, the only road games he has are at Tennessee, which is going to be rough, at Georgia, which isn't going to be fun. By week 9, I think Ole Miss will probably know who they are next year. If they're good, it'll be a crazy place to play. If they're not, probably won't be anybody there. Mississippi State will be loud because of the cowbells, and then what Alabama brings, but I don't think a terrible schedule. We will jump on down now to the Volunteers, who open their season against Furman, and then a game at Georgia Tech. I believe that game is being played in Bobby Dodd Stadium now. It was originally going to be Mercedes-Benz, but now actually going to be played on campus, which is a great thing. We need more games on campuses. We don't need Auburn and Baylor playing in Atlanta because nobody cares about that. We want Auburn and Baylor, unless this is a 3-year series. That can change things. But they played it at Baylor last year. Hopefully they'll play it at Auburn not this year, but the next season. Why is it in Atlanta? The only reason you should do that is if it's a 3rd game in a home and home, and you just want to kind of have a rubber match at a neutral site. You have Ole Miss and Louisville opening their season in Nashville. What sense does that make? I get Louisville's just right up the interstate from Nashville, but that game being played at a neutral site just seems extremely weird. And the only other games being played in neutral sites in the SEC, at least this next season, is the Red River Shootout and the Florida-Georgia game. Everything else is being played at a home stadium. But to continue with Tennessee, Furman at Georgia Tech, Kennesaw State. And then SEC schedule, it's a bit rough. They got home against Texas, home against Auburn, at Arkansas, home against Alabama, at South Carolina, bye week, Kentucky at home, at Texas A&M, LSU at Vanderbilt. So, funny enough, for LSU, they have those Ole Miss and Tennessee games quite spread out. which, I think is kind of fun, for Lane Kiffin. He's going to have people hating him in early September and in late November. We'll look at some of those last game of the season. We still got the Iron Bowl. We now have LSU and Arkansas back as a Thanksgiving weekend game. Thank you. I'm disappointed that one went away this year for Oklahoma LSU. Georgia Tech, Florida State. You got those. Kentucky and Louisville. You still got the Egg Bowl. Great to see that continue. You have Oklahoma and Missouri, Tennessee, Vandy, Texas A&M, and then South Carolina and Clemson. The Power 4 opponent that each SEC team is playing, Alabama is playing Florida State in Week 3. Arkansas is playing at Utah in Week 2. That could be a really fun game. Auburn is playing Baylor. Florida is taking the easy way out, which several other SEC teams are doing, and just keeping Florida State as their rival. Same thing with Georgia. Same thing with Kentucky. LSU is playing Clemson again. That one will be at home. Ole Miss is playing Louisville. Mississippi State is playing at Minnesota. Missouri's playing at Kansas. Like, if you're going to play a rivalry game, play it early in the season. Don't give me wait till the last week to play a Power 4 opponent, because I can tell you the worst Florida State, Georgia Tech, and Louisville looked were probably the last week of the season. Now, Louisville ended up beating the crap out of Kentucky, but not the greatest. Oklahoma has to go to Michigan. South Carolina will go. They'll keep that game with Clemson. Tennessee is at Georgia Tech. Texas at home against Ohio State. Texas A&M at home against Arizona State, and then Vanderbilt will be at home against NC State. I like that the teams, will venture out and play some other teams. I get it would be nice to see Georgia play, a big school. Don't think they're going to play an extra Power 4 game that they don't have to. I mean, they're already playing an FCS team in TSU and then Western Kentucky. Most of the SEC is going to be playing an FCS team. I believe all of them do, actually. Alabama does. Alabama plays Chattanooga. Arkansas plays North Alabama. Auburn will be playing Samford. Florida will be playing Campbell. Georgia will be playing Tennessee State. Kentucky playing Youngstown State. LSU playing McNeese State. Ole Miss playing Wofford. Mississippi State playing Tennessee Tech. Missouri playing... I'm not exactly sure what that logo is. Let me look at the... I have a feeling at what it is, but I don't want to say it and it be completely wrong. Okay, it is Arkansas Pine Bluff. I wasn't sure, but so their FCS game will be Arkansas Pine Bluff. Oklahoma is not playing one. South Carolina will be playing Towson. Tennessee playing Furman. Texas playing not an FCS team, so Texas and Oklahoma. I'm like seeing you play tougher games. I'm here for it. Texas A&M will be playing the Citadel. Almost said Missouri State, but they're FBS now. Vanderbilt almost said Delaware, but they're FBS now. They will be playing Austin Peay. Listen, I think this year with the SEC going to 9 conference games and then this being the kind of year that only has one bye week, we are loaded. There is some kind of down weeks like that. There's not a whole lot of games going on Halloween weekend. In the SEC, there are 6 of the 16 teams not playing that weekend. But other than that, you don't have more than 3 or 4 teams off in a given week. Really, more than 2. Weeks 8 and 9, the last couple weeks there of October, it's kind of where most of the bye weeks will fall. But other than that, it should be a great slate. So now we will hop on to Heisman. We had the finalists released earlier this week, being Jeremiah Love, Diego Pavia, Fernando Mendoza, and Julian Sam. We had that confirmed last night when the Heisman Trophy released. They are 5th through 10th place. And I'm not mad at this one bit. Jacob Rodriguez gets 5th, the first man out from Texas Tech, won the fan vote. Had the cool story with his girlfriend or his wife, and was, if we go by the most important player in college football to his team, You could probably take Mendoza or Sagan out and put Rodriguez in. Texas Tech is not in the playoff right now as the number 4 team in the country without Jacob Rodriguez. If you put an average or even a slightly above average linebacker there, they probably have 2 losses, and they're probably right on the outs, probably just in, maybe in that 8 to 10 spot. But definitely not hosting. Definitely wouldn't have been hosting a game, and now they have a first-round bye. Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State, again, I think he's one of the best players in college football, but set out some games, had some slow games. That's not going to win you the Heisman as a wide receiver. Gunnar Stockton in there for Georgia. Again, I think he was a guy that would have been a little bit higher if he didn't have like a 70 passing yard game against Georgia there in the last week or against Georgia Tech in the last week of the season against a Georgia Tech team that was letting everybody throw all over them. I mean, look the numbers C.J. Bailey put up compared to what Stockton put up against them. Trinidad Chambliss, quarterback at Ole Miss, sitting in there at 8th place. That's probably the best spot he could have been. I mean, comes in week 3 and started from there on out. If you give him 2 more games, he's probably in the top 4. But again, Ole Miss wanted to rock with Austin Simmons to start the year, and they were lucky that Chambliss kind of fell into their hands and was as great as he was, because without him, Ole Miss is not in the playoff right now, and Ole Miss is probably 8-4. Because Austin Simmons had a turnover problem, and turnovers, there were a couple of games that it could have cost them big time. Caleb Downs, the safety at Ohio State at 9. Again, I think that Smith and Downs are, for Ohio State at least, are the best offensive and best defensive player in the country, just talent-wise and what they're going to be able to do at the next level. I mean, Downs is incredible. His stats may not... I'm going to pull up his stats to see if they're anything crazy. I would imagine that he puts up consistently pretty good numbers. 40 tackles, 2 interceptions, 1 pass deflection. Actually, the worst year of his career. Now, given he probably didn't play a whole lot of snaps, these aren't going to tell you any snaps, but he's talented. Is he 9th in the Heisman good this year? Definitely not. Haynes King at Georgia Tech and 10th. Again, he was a guy kind of like Pavia, put up great numbers. It's just the way that his season ended probably didn't help him one bit. He had great numbers, though. I mean, looking at him overall, had 2,700 passing yards, had 900 on the ground. I mean, so 3,600 total yards, 27 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 12 passing, 15 rushing. I mean, it was a pretty good senior year, so to speak. He just had some tough go of it there at the end when, in games he threw an interception, they had a 1-possession win over Colorado, a loss to NC State, a loss to Georgia, and a loss to Pitt. Maybe he doesn't fumble in those games, or maybe he doesn't throw an interception in those games, they win, but in games he turned the ball over, Georgia Tech was 1-4. I really do think that Pitt game lost him the Heisman. Because he got to the point where he was kind of doing what Pavia was doing and throwing for 300 yards every game. That Pitt game kind of ended all that. So I think it's a great top 10. Again, Rodriguez won the fan vote. Top 4 still love Pavia, Mendoza, and Sagan. I imagine that trophy ceremony is this weekend. Just going to see the time. So it is Saturday at 6 p.m. on ABC. Who do I think will win it? Realistically, it's probably going to be Fernando Mendoza, just because he won the Big Ten championship, and I mean he has great numbers. Just going to look at him overall from top to bottom, he's not as much of a rushing threat, but man, his arm was incredible this year. I mean, throws for 20 yards under 3,000, 33 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and most of those interceptions have come pretty recently, at least since 3 of them have come, half of them have come in the month of November. Ran for 240 yards, so we're looking at 3,200 yards and 39 touchdowns. Yeah, that's pretty good. And there's talks of him being a top 5 draft pick, one of the first quarterbacks off the board. I think so. Now, if we're looking at purely on stats and what they did as being the most important person on their team, it's got to be Diego Pavia. 3,200 passing yards, add 800 more on the ground, so has over 4,000 yards of offense. He did this in 12 games. Mendoza did that in 13 games. So slightly over 4,000 yards of total offense, 36 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. So had a bit of a interception problem. 2 of those come in that last game against Tennessee. But you had a guy that threw for over 300 yards in 3 straight games, who hadn't thrown for 300 yet in his career. Throws for over 365 yards in 3 straight games. Goes for almost 500 against Kentucky. Breaks Whit Taylor's record at Vanderbilt for the most passing yards in a single game. And then the next week, rushes for 165 yards. Went for over 100 twice. Went over 75 5 times. So, take Vanderbilt take Diego Pavia away from Vanderbilt and let them run with, again, kind of the same argument with Jacob Rodriguez. Put an average or slightly above an average quarterback in that situation. Vanderbilt wins 7 games, maybe 8. Looking at games that I think Pavia probably won. I'm not going to say won by himself, but they don't win if they don't have him. I don't think they win as convincingly at Virginia Tech. I don't think they win as convincingly against South Carolina. Alabama destroys them. LSU beats them. Missouri beats them. They can still lose to Texas. They probably lose to Auburn, and they lose maybe to Tennessee as well. So that's a 6-6 team right there. So I think it should be Diego Pavia. It's probably going to end up being Mendoza. I think Love should get a little bit more appreciation as well. Looking at what he did with the amount of carries he got, because it seems like Notre Dame forgot he was on their team until week 4. Saying, he has great stats, he's efficient, he does everything right, but I don't think he's going to win just for the fact that his numbers weren't as great as the other guys, and look at the talent he's got around him. He's putting the football up there, but Jeremiah Smith's making those catches. Carnell Tate's making those catches. And again, nothing against saying, I just think that he's getting a little more help from his guys, whereas guys like Love, Pavia, maybe Mendoza a little bit are kind of doing it on their own. My one argument against Mendoza is the fact that you look at that receiving core he has with Surratt and with Cooper. Those are NFL-level receivers. And Mendoza this year has not thrown for 300 yards in a game. He threw for 299 against Wisconsin, but has not thrown for he did once, Michigan State. He threw for over 300 against Michigan State. But other than that, 193, 245, 270, 260. Those are just above average quarterback numbers. And I just think the fact that he did that every game has pretty much walked him to the Heisman. All right, bowl game picks. These are, we just have one today because there is one bowl game on Saturday. I believe it'll be coming up after the Heisman Trophy celebration. It is the Bucked Up LA Bowl. It's a newer bowl game. First year was in 2021, and it probably has one of my favorite bowl game moments ever. You had Utah State 10-2, Mountain West Conference champs. You had Oregon State 7-5, kind of an average year for them. So Utah State had to start Cooper Lagasse. He was their third-string quarterback to start the year, and due to a bunch of injuries, he was the guy. He had to go in and start this game without ever making a single pass attempt in college. Now, he was just a sophomore, but had not made a single pass attempt in college, and then would go on to throw a 62-yard touchdown pass on his first collegiate pass attempt. Just bombs away, a big deep ball, and then Utah State would go on to win 24-13. So got some love for the LA Bowl, especially with just that memory there. So we got Boise State and Washington. Boise State 9-4 Mountain West Conference champs. Washington 8-4, kind of a middle of the road, slightly above the middle of the road team in the Big Ten. Had a bit of a disappointing season. Would probably be playing in a better bowl if they didn't lose that game to Wisconsin. Washington favored in the spread by 10 points. Over under set at 52.5. I would make an easy pick and just say Washington, go on with it, and it's probably what I'll end up doing. But what Washington are we going to get? Are we going to get the Washington that, when Illinois came to their place and I said they weren't a very tough team, they punched them in the mouth. And absolutely dominated that game. It was probably the best they looked all season. Or are we going to get that team that lost, I think it was the next week, 2 weeks later to Wisconsin, 13-10, and Wisconsin's leading passer was their punter. So Washington has some good wins. They have some, honestly, before a couple weeks ago, they hadn't done anything really impressive. Not some nice wins to close the season against Purdue and UCLA. Fell to Washington in their last game. Now, looking at stats overall, DeMond Williams, 2,800 passing yards, 21 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Add 500 more on the ground and 6 touchdowns. So about 3,400 yards and 27 touchdowns. And this Boise team is a lot different than what we saw from them last year. It's not just Ashton Genty. It's the Dylan Riley show. It's the Gaines show. What do we think of this Boise State team? Because once they lost Maddox Madsen, I didn't have much faith in them. But then they go out and beat UNLV 38-21 in the championship game. Actually, Madsen is back now. See, little things like that change this. If it wasn't Maddox Madsen, and it was Cuthert, their other quarterback, who actually had a pretty good game his last game against Utah State, going for 341 and 2 touchdowns. This Boise team is really interesting. I don't know if they have enough up front, though. I will say, though, that Boise might be able to give them some problems with the pass game. Looking at their quarterback numbers throughout the last couple games, they've been airing it out a lot. Gone for over 230 yards at least the last 3 games. But they've struggled against good defenses, and Washington has a rather stingy defense. I'm going to go with Washington. But I think this could actually be a really, really good game. And, maybe have some impacts on a job we talked about earlier with, Jed Fish potentially being one of the names on the hot board for Michigan. So that will do it for our college football segment. We will take a break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about college basketball. We got to break down the kind of a lack of games, but some of the games from Wednesday and Thursday, and get you ready for it tonight, Saturday, and maybe even a little look into Sunday. That will be when we come back on the X Sports Network.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
Good Works at Home, formerly known as The Summit at Home, is a licensed non-skilled agency dedicated to helping you maintain your independence at home for as long as possible. Our compassionate and caring staff provide support in various areas, including dressing, bathing, personal hygiene, transportation, cleaning, and companionship. Please call our office about services, payment options, and long-term care policies at 931-762-2310. We look forward to assisting you with keeping your independence longer.
Efficiency, reliability, accuracy. Move forward with your real estate sale or purchase with Title and Escrow of Lawrence County, the most experienced closing team around. Working with clients locally and throughout the state, we offer a wide range of services, including the expertise of an on-staff attorney, backed by our more than 49 years experience in titles and closings. We get the job done on time at a fair price and ensure every last detail is correct. Our goal is to give you peace of mind. When you work with us, you work with people who live where you do. We understand the importance of the real estate community and strive to build strong relationships with all parties involved in the process. Whether you're buying a home, selling a business, acquiring land, or anything in between, you're in good hands with Title and Escrow of Lawrence County.
Put the most experienced closing team on your side. Contact Title and Escrow of Lawrence County today.
Want to take the next steps in taking care of your health? Tennessee Valley Allergy Services can make your goals a reality. Their team of doctors, nurses, and medical professionals are dedicated to providing allergy care and treatment, such as drops and shots, to fit your exact needs. Their expert services are for anyone ages 2 and older. Whether you struggle with environmental or food allergies, they've got you covered. Discover a better you at Tennessee Valley Allergy Services, located right next to the Zaxby's in Lawrenceburg. Book online or call 931-325-0757 to schedule your appointment today. Volco Auto Supply in Lawrenceburg has a legacy of being a family-owned and operated company. Since 1927, our business has grown and evolved into today's one-stop source for all your automotive supplies. But in that time, one thing has stayed the same, and that's our commitment to our customers and their needs. At Volco Auto Supply, you'll find everything for your car, truck, or even fleet of vehicles, but with good old-fashioned customer service the way it needs to be. That's Volco Auto Supply, 416 Buffalo Road in Lawrenceburg. Visit VolcoAuto.com.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
And welcome back to segment number 2 of the Mark My Words College Sports Show here on the X Sports Network. It is college basketball time, and honestly, not a whole lot going on this week. We had Minnesota and Purdue in Big Ten play. Purdue handled that one 85-57. I think Purdue is starting to get everything figured out now that they have all their guys there, which, ask any basketball coach, it's a lot more fun to play when you have all the guys that you would like to have out, that you planned to have out there early in the season. For the Golden Gophers, Jalen Crocker-Johnson, 17 points, 15 from Cade Tyson, who has had a little bit of a career resurgence. The senior out of Monroe, North Carolina, is 13th in the country in scoring at 21 points per game. Had a really good start to his career at Belmont. Was a 16-point, 6-rebound kind of guy. Transfers to UNC, back to his home state. I believe he was he's a legacy kind of guy. So went to UNC, was getting 8 minutes a game. Went from playing 30 to playing 8. Was getting 2 points, 2 rebounds a game. So makes the move again, goes to Minnesota. Not as big of a name, but having the best year of his career. 21 points, not as much rebounding, only 4 rebounds a game, playing 36 minutes. Glad to see him having a good season because I really wanted him to come to Tennessee a couple of years ago. Obviously, with him being as good of a player as he was at Belmont, goes to UNC. I hated to see him struggle because, again, I thought he was a really good player, and now he's kind of getting to show that once again. So glad he's having a decent season there at Minnesota. It sucks they're not one of the better teams in the country, but he's still putting up good numbers. Purdue is, they're just, these stats from their starters are just kind of funny because there's not one of them that did anything that did anything exceptional, but they all did everything really well. Trey Kaufman-Renn, 14-10. He's going to do that every game this year. Oscar Clough, 14-11. Probably going to do that most games this year. CJ Cox, not the greatest game. Braden Smith, though, 15 points, 12 assists, and 6 boards, and 5 steals. Just absurd numbers. Fletcher Lawyer goes for 10 points, not his best game. And then you get 11 points, 5 rebounds from Daniel Jacobson off the bench. Shocker, another 7'5" kid on Purdue's team with Jacobson. Boilermakers 9-0 or 9-1, 2-0 in the Big Ten. Looking pretty good. Do have a matchup on Saturday. We'll talk about in a little bit. Wisconsin went on the road to face the undefeated Nebraska Cornhuskers. And, well, Nebraska went in undefeated, and they came out undefeated as well. Great win for the Cornhuskers, 90-60. Took it to Greg Gard's team. And, man, I'll tell you, Fred Hoiberg has got him a squad similar to what we saw. I was just talking about with Purdue. Your starters go for 14 points. Rank Mass, 17-10. Sam Hoiberg goes for 12 points. 15 from Braden Frager off the bench. 8 points from Jared Garcia off the bench. That's just a whole team that is just playing as one unit. Nebraska, big game on Saturday. We'll talk about that one coming up in a minute, and how it is a travesty that game is not on actual television. And we had the Cy-Hawk game last night, and boy, I'll tell you, that was a great game. But I'll tell you, basketball in the state of Iowa is in a great spot. Ben McCollum, he's a great coach. We've seen what he's done at Drake and at other stops as well. Great coach. TJ Otzelberger, one of the best in the country at Iowa State. It was number 4 versus an unranked team last night, but those are 2 really good teams. Iowa State gets pushed, but gets the win at 66-62. I hope we get this game twice. I know that it not being a conference game makes it a little hard to get 2 in one season. I don't believe they played this game twice. No. But the one was a great matchup. And Iowa State had to kind of come back down off of that high of beating number one Purdue earlier last weekend. And they came out great. Joshua Jefferson, 24 points. Momcilovic, 10. Taman Lipsey, 14. In a game that's going to be as defensive as this one, that'll get it done. Those three guys right there. For Iowa, Manuatu goes for 10. Bennett Sturts, 10 points. Didn't shoot great from outside. Did Sturts. Tavion Banks went for 14. Got a little bit from Tate Sage and Isaiah Howard off the bench, but not a whole lot going there. But again, this wasn't going to be a big offensive game. It was going to be defense and a slow pace. That's how Ben McCollum likes to play. And funny enough, he's at Iowa. I mean, slow pace offense on football, slow pace offense in basketball. If you're a fan of running up and down the courts, running up and down the field, running up and down the court, do not go to Iowa. So, what do we have this weekend? This is a weekend that I say, if I don't say your team and you're not totally locked into one of these games, probably a good weekend to maybe not watch some sports. I mean, I get everybody's been locked in since start of football season. Might be a decent weekend to maybe throw a game on, not 4 or 5 like we have been the past couple of months with football and now some of the early season basketball. This weekend's kind of a bit slow. Really only one game to watch tonight, Texas at UConn. That one at 7 p.m. on Fox. Texas 7-3 on the season. Not the greatest start of all time, especially how some of their games have gone. But I'll tell you, I think Texas's last coaching staff made this schedule and was thinking that they would be a lot better. Start off with a loss to Duke, but then you get nice wins over, 102-97 over NC State. Then you get blown out by Virginia. Get a nice win over Southern on Monday. Looking at who the Longhorns are going for. Wow, 28 points from the 7-foot Lithuanian sophomore. Transfer from FAU. Shocker there. Jordan Pope, 18 points. 10 points from Dalen Swain there. Where's Tremont Mark? I mean, he had 6 points, played 21 minutes, only took 4 shots. I mean, this is a guy that was putting up some numbers at the end of the season last year. Was averaging 10 points, averaged 17 a game when he was still at Arkansas. And before that, he was at Houston averaging 10 points a game, playing 30 minutes. Just a slow start to this year. But listen, if Texas wants a get-right game, they have it right in front of them. Spread's got UConn favored by 14.5. I say that score probably holds up. I mean, just looking at the talent that UConn has, top to bottom, you still got Alex Caravan. Solo Ball's giving you 15 a game. Silas Demery is your point guard. He's done a great job. And looking at your last 5, you got a nice win over Florida in there, nice win over Kansas, nice win over Illinois. You look at Texas, and they have losses to Virginia, lost to Arizona State. Their only good win is against NC State. Now let's move to Saturday, where we have, again, it's not a loaded slate, but we do have a handful, 4 top 25 matchups, some of them early, some of them late. First game of the day, 17th ranked Arkansas, 16th ranked Texas Tech, 11 a.m. on ESPN2. We saw Arkansas in the SEC-ACC Challenge absolutely handle Louisville, but we've seen an Arkansas team go up to the Breslin Center and really struggle. We've seen an Arkansas team struggle against, well, I want to say they struggled against Duke. They actually handled Duke pretty well, for that to be a loss. What are we going to get in this game? Darius Acuff has been the guy for Arkansas. 17 points a game is been really good for them. But, Malik Thomas, the other freshman guard, he's giving you 17 a game as well. Trevin Brazile, 13 points. DJ Wagner, Carter Knox, Billy Richmond, Malik Ewan, they're all going for 8 points a game. That's a good offense. Nick Pringle is, drowning down here at the bottom at only 5 points a game. Him transferring from South Carolina to try to get a little more run, and he's playing less minutes a game than he was at Alabama. But, man, Arkansas, they've got the talent. Does Texas Tech have enough? Because we know the Red Raiders are really good. They have... I'm not going to say they have a great win yet, because they really don't. They're only matchups, against the ranked Illinois you lost. Decent win against Wake Forest, but then you get blown out by Purdue. Only a 4-point win over Wyoming. You get a nice win over LSU last weekend, but how good really is LSU? You got a real test right here at home. Just saying, Texas Tech needs this one. I would say they probably need it more than Arkansas, realistically. Both teams 4-1 in their last 5. Their losses are to Purdue and Duke. One of them was a little closer than the other, but relatively speaking, I don't know. I just really like Arkansas. The way they were running up and down the court, I get this one won't be at home. So that could have a bit of a problem, but realistically, probably not too big of a problem. I believe this game is actually being played in Dallas, the American Airlines Arena. So should be a good matchup there for that one. The second game of the day, starting at noon on Fox, Oklahoma State. Cowboys 9-0, Oklahoma 6-3. Kind of similar to what I was saying with Texas. I think they made their schedule a little further in advance than they had the team, or did Oklahoma, and they've struggled this year. Getting a 15-point loss to Gonzaga, that's actually not that bad. A 6-point loss to Nebraska, at the time looked bad. Not a bad loss. 1 point over Marquette's not great. A good win over Wake Forest. You fall to Arizona State. It's a big opportunity for Oklahoma to get a big win, but Oklahoma State at that point will be 10-0, and boy, does the Big 12 need any more good teams. We just talked about Texas Tech; they're really good. Oklahoma State could be really good. I like Oklahoma State in that one. And then, we got another Big 12 team that could be pretty good right here, facing off with another SEC team, Cincinnati and Georgia. Former playoff matchup in college football. Or it wasn't a playoff, it was a bowl game. I think it was the Sugar Bowl a couple years ago, 2019, 2020, something like that. Cincinnati coming off a loss against Xavier. Has struggled a little bit as of late. This should be a pretty good game, all things considered. For Cincinnati, leading the way, it's Day Thomas. Him and Baba Miller had a really good start to the year. Georgia's putting up a crap load of points. Jeremiah Wilkinson, 17 points. Blue Cane, 15. Cannon Catchings, I believe the nephew of Tamika Catchings, 10 points a game. 9 points from Millender. 9 points from Wilkins. 8 points from Cyril. Jordan Ross giving you 7. Justin Bailey giving you 6. They have guys all over the place just producing. They have a game earlier in the year. Their last couple of games, they put up 107 on Florida State. They put up 123 on Tennessee Tech. They put up 120 on Morehead State. They put up 109 on Bellarmine. They can put up some points. And I think at that point they're going to be able to outscore Cincinnati. Look for Georgia to get a big win there. Memphis at Louisville, a former American. Well, I guess Louisville wasn't in the American. But two teams that kind of ran the mid-2000s when you think about basketball. Memphis was really good with John Calipari. Louisville was really good with Rick Pitino. And now it's a little bit of a different story. Penny Hardaway, not having the greatest start of the year at Memphis, but I do think they got a big win last Saturday against Baylor. Being able to get back to 500 against a team that's, pretty dang good, I would say. That I think Baylor's probably going to be a middle-of-the-road team in the Big 12, but right there on the edge of playoff contention. They have some tough losses, though. Ole Miss is good. UNLV is probably going to be pretty good. A 9-point loss to Purdue. A 1-point loss to Wake Forest. In a couple of these games, they're 1 or 2 plays away. I think Memphis is going to give Louisville a bit of a tougher fight than you're expecting. But, man, Louisville at the Center is tough to beat. And they've got so many guys that can do it. Ryan Conwell leading the way with the team, 20 points a game. But you look, they got one of the best freshmen in the country, Michael Brown. He's averaging 17. McNeely's one of the best three-point shooters in the conference, 13 points a game. Javon Hadley's really stepped in and played well. I like Louisville in this one. Nebraska at Illinois. Boy, this is a good one in the Big Ten. You got Nebraska 10-0 undefeated. You got Illinois 8-2. Have played really well as of late, actually. You got two teams that are hot, and somebody's going to have to cool down. When you look at things defensively, I like Illinois a lot more. They've held some good teams to low scoring totals. Tennessee only scored 62 against them. And I don't think the Vols are blowing anybody away with their offense, but that was a team that scored 75 against Houston. So I think that this is going to be one where talent's going to just, I think, straight out win you this game for Illinois. Now, they could shock me. Nebraska could shock me again and win this game, and everything be all great for Hoiberg and his team. They'd be 11-0. They're in the top 25 now. Would climb up that, I would imagine, probably a very large amount. They're at 23 right now. Would probably have to imagine that being 11-0 and now having a ranked win on your schedule, do they bump up to 12 or 13? I mean, how far do they jump up? This one on Peacock, I don't know what else is on TV at the time, but, man, I mean, the 2:30 ESPN game is Memphis at Louisville. The 4:30 ESPN game is Kansas at NC State. Neither one of those games are as good as this one's going to be. If I'm going to watch one game on Saturday, it's probably going to be this one. If not, it is another one that's a little later down the road. Kansas and NC State, we'll talk about this one. This Kansas team is a different animal now because they've got Darren Peterson back, and he's a guy that makes a team go from a pretty good team to a really good team. Memphis, and the greatest thing for Kansas is they went about 2 weeks without him. So Flory Badunga found his own. He's giving you 15 and 9 a game. Trey White, 14 and 7. Melvin Council's playing good. Bryson Tiller's playing good. You're getting some guys like Elmarco Jackson and Jamari McDowell to have some big games. And now you just got Darren Peterson back, who's putting up 20 a game, shooting 50% from the field, 42% from three. One of the best freshmen in the country confidence-wise. And it just made Kansas that much more dangerous. NC State, they're good. I just don't think they have enough talent yet. Will Wade's going to need a couple of years before he gets these guys going, but I think they'll give Kansas a good fight, but I just don't see Kansas losing this one. Indiana at Kentucky at 6:30 on ESPN. Both of the teams unranked. Funny enough, when you look at two of the bigger brands in college football or college basketball history, it's Indiana and it's Kentucky. I believe this is, I don't know if I'm right about this, but it feels like these two teams have not played in a while. Let's see here. So these two teams have not played since 2016. Indiana got the win in that one, 73-67. But I remember it's actually one of the last ones in this series from 2011 at Assembly Hall up in Indiana. Trenton Watford hitting that buzzer beater three to beat number one Kentucky that kind of put Indiana back on the map. Was a huge win for Tom Crean. Overall, though, man, it is a lot. Kentucky leads the series 32-25, and it has been all Kentucky since 1991, back when they were playing in the Hoosier Dome. The early years of the 1920s all the way up to they had them they didn't lose to Kentucky from 1924 till 1943. Again, had a little streak started against them from 71 to 74. Man, these are some great games. Two of the best programs in the country, and now they're playing as both unranked. I don't know when the last time that happened. I like Indiana in this one. I think Tucker DeVries is just he's really good, and I think Kentucky has too much head stuff going on right now. Otega always sort of figuring it out, but they spent a lot of money on Denzel Aberdeen for him to do nothing. And Brandon Garrison got benched his last game because Mark Pope was just fed up with his stuff. There's a lot of stuff going bad with Kentucky. I'm sure they'll get it figured out before they play Tennessee for the first time, because that's usually when they kind of start turning things around. But just the way that things have been going right now, I think Indiana runs away with this one. Kentucky hasn't looked too competitive in any other big games this year. Just look at their schedule. They've scheduled to be the team they were last year, a really good team that's going to have maybe not the best record, but are going to be competitive. Well, first ranked game of the year, Louisville, you lose. You didn't look good in that one. It was an 8-point final, but you were dominated for most of that game. Michigan State, you looked bad. You lose by 17. Probably could have lost by more than that. It was, I think, 25 at one point. Then you go to December, a 3-point loss against North Carolina. Yeah, you're getting things right. Okay, cool. Now we have a big game Friday night against Gonzaga, and you get beat by 35 points. You get right Tuesday against NC Central, but I'm pretty sure most teams in the SEC would get right against NC Central. You got to prove it Saturday against Indiana. You're at Rupp, you're at home, so you'll have the crowd to your back, but if it goes anywhere similar to the way that Gonzaga game went, you're not going to be just getting booed out of Bridgestone Arena. You're going to get booed out of Rupp. You might get booed out of the state. SMU at LSU. This one actually being played in New Orleans at the Pelicans Arena. 7:30 on the SEC Network. SMU 9-1 only lost to Vanderbilt. LSU 8-1 only lost to Texas Tech. These two teams are really good. They put up a lot of points. They have a fun offense. I don't think either one of these teams is like a Final Four contender, but there were those teams that have fun records early in the season. Could they be good? I think McMahon's getting his stuff figured out there at LSU. As are the Mustangs. They've been a formidable opponent since they've been in the SEC or the ACC. I like SMU in this one. LSU kind of proved where they were in that one loss. What was it, a 24-point loss, something like that to Texas Tech. Not good. Arizona, number 1 team in the country, is heading to Birmingham to play number 12 Alabama at Legacy Arena. This one at 8:30 on ESPN. If I'm not watching Nebraska, Illinois, the one game I'm watching tomorrow is Arizona at Alabama. It's a good one because Arizona, undefeated, has looked good all season. I mean, I don't know if they've really had a moment where you could say that maybe they tripped up, maybe they slipped a little bit, because they haven't. I mean, yeah, that first game against Florida, a nice 6-point win. I mean, that was reigning national champions, and Arizona was just top 15. Then they get a 4-point win over UCLA. UCLA's fallen off a little bit, but then they go beat UConn a week later. And then after that, they had just like a 30-point win against Auburn last weekend. Now they have to come back to the east, to the southeast, and we'll have to play Alabama in Birmingham. Alabama plays really well when they play in Legacy Arena, and their offense has been firing on all cylinders as of late. I mean, this one's going to have fireworks from start to finish. Both these teams are going to put up a ton of points because that's how they like to coach. Tommy Lloyd likes points, and Nate Oates loves points, loves three-pointers. And, Alabama looks really good right now because their top 3 scorers are all shooting over 40% from 3. LeBaron Philon, 21 a game, Aiden Holloway, 18 a game, and Jalil Bethea at 12 a game. But then you have guys like Amari Allen, Taylor Bowen, Latrell Wrightsell, London Jemison, Aiden Sherrell. I mean, I could keep going. There's still a couple of guys that are playing some big minutes. I mean, you already got 6 guys over 10 three-pointers made. I mean, that's just... Alabama is going to put up points, but can they stop Arizona? That's always been the thing with Alabama. They're going to put up points. They're going to look good, but where's their defense at? Mississippi State and Utah at 9 p.m. on ESPNU. Probably not much to watch here, but Utah a chance to get a win over Mississippi and Mississippi State in the same season would be a big win for the Utes out there in Utah. And our last game of the night at 10:30 on ESPN, we've got UCLA, number 25 UCLA, at number 8 Gonzaga. I mean, when you think West Coast basketball over the last 20 years, you think of Gonzaga. When you think of West Coast basketball, maybe the 40 years before that, you think UCLA. Both programs are in a good spot right now. Mark Few has consistently just got his team better and better and better. Mick Cronin, he's figured things out with his guys. I mean, at this point last year, he was talking about benching his guys, and they didn't care. They were soft, and they do have 2 losses right now. But looking at their level of competition they've faced, I think it's a miracle they only have 2 losses. And I get they started the season very high in the rankings, but you fall to UCLA, the number 1 team in the country, and you lose a game to Cal. And at the time, it looked pretty bad, but Cal right now is 9-1. So, I mean, and that one was to Kansas State, who record isn't good, but that was a game where Chris Bell had 27. Day-Day Ames give you 25, but you got to look at what Kansas State did. Kamari McGriff, P.J. Haggerty, Nate Johnson all went over 20. So it's defense that's kind of been the struggle for Cal, and they put up 80 points against UCLA. It's definitely not their offense that's struggling. That was a neutral site game. they've gotten back right. Wins over Washington, wins over Oregon. Now in the Seattle Hoop Showdown, they need a big win here. But man, Gonzaga, I mean, blowing Kentucky out of the water is one thing. Doing it in Nashville, in a city that they typically take over, is another thing. Now you're back kind of in your hometown. It's not Spokane, but Seattle's pretty close. I think they get it done. So go back over the picks again. I have Arkansas over Texas Tech. I have Oklahoma State over Oklahoma. Georgia over Cincinnati. Louisville over Memphis. I'm going to go with Illinois over Nebraska, Kansas over NC State, Indiana over Kentucky, SMU over LSU, Arizona over Alabama, Utah over Mississippi State, and Gonzaga over UCLA. So that will do it for this Friday edition of the Mark My Words show here on the X Sports Network. We will be back on Monday. We'll have bowl games to break down. We will have maybe a new Michigan football coach. We'll have a Heisman winner to talk about. We'll have bowl games to break down. We'll break down the LA Bowl. We'll talk about some bowl games that are happening earlier next week. We'll talk about all the college basketball going down over the weekend. If you're wondering why I didn't talk about games on Sunday, there's only one ranked team playing, and there's no big-time games on Sunday. So enjoy a weekend of kind of low-key when it comes to sports. You can watch the Heisman Trophy Saturday night. You can watch Boise State and Washington to follow. You can have some basketball on maybe on Saturday. As for me, I'll probably watch Arizona and Alabama. I'll probably watch Nebraska and Illinois too, realistically. But, I mean, this is kind of a good weekend if you're maybe starting to get a little burned out on sports to, take a step back and, it's going to be cold this weekend, so maybe not go for a walk, but maybe sit in front of the TV, watch some Christmas movies, maybe, spend some time with your family, with your loved ones, because as we get closer and closer to Christmas, we get closer and closer to conference play starting, and that means every game's big at that point. So, but yeah, we will be back on Monday to break down all the stuff that we will have over the weekend. We'll have shows Monday, Wednesday, Friday as usual next week. But the week after that will be the week of Christmas, and no shows that week. But so that will give us a lot to catch up on after Christmas. So that will do it for this week's edition, or this Friday edition of the Mark My Words College Sports Show here on the X Sports Network. Have a good weekend, everybody, and we'll see you on Monday.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.